All right, YouTube. We got to have a chat. We've mentioned it in the last couple videos, but have you guys seen what the hell LeBron base cards are going for? Uh, I was blown away by this, that they jumped this month. By the way, Northeast Ohio Sports Cards here. Don't forget to sub, like, comment, YouTube shenanigans. Let's get us to 400 subs. We're just shy. We can do it. I know we can. Click the little buttons down below. Enough of the YouTube nonsense. Let's get into this. LeBron James 2019 base cards. His quote unquote Lakers rookie. These things were selling for what I thought was a lot prior to the jump. But since the bubble games have started, they have gone up even more. The chart that you are seeing in front of you is from the last 7 days. And you could see that LeBron's base prism, PSA 10, that's this guy right here, that little guy, in a PSA 10 now sells for $685. Excuse me. This is his, 17th year card? Bad at math. Somewhere in there. A lot of years. High teens. And this thing's going for almost $700 in a PSA 10 now. Raw, it is going for $70. I wish I could tell you that this makes sense. I see the appeal for it as being his first quote unquote like his Lakers rookie and all that stuff. Like I get why people would want it, but when they talk about demand in the sports card market, this is what they're talking about because the demand must be there. Because there are probably a billion, maybe not a billion, but there are a lot of these printed. This is not a numbered card. This is just a base card. And when Prism first came out, even up until like the early winter, you could get these things for like under $5 a piece. I'm sure someone out there was a lot smarter than the rest of us and bought a bunch of these up thinking ahead. I don't think anyone ever thought they would go this crazy, but here we are. Never know what 2020 is going to throw at us. But yeah, LeBron base prisms are going crazy. Absolutely crazy. So I wanted to look at his other stuff, quote unquote, because this actually is not the first card of him in a Lakers jersey. The first card of him in a Lakers jersey is actually last year's Optic. So this is 18-19 Optic, which is the top one you see at this chart. And this has gone up a lot too. It's up 35%. The raw is up 54%. PSA 10 is going for 550, and raw is going for 66. Now this is to be expected. Prism always outsells Optic, so this is not that shocking. What is surprising to me, and I knew that this card was going for a reasonable amount of money. We talked about it on my list of like best cards to get if you only have like $100 just to kind of get your bankroll rolling. And we talked about LeBron 2019 Optic base. These at the time of that video, I think we're going for a little over $100 in a PSA 10, maybe 125, 150, but not like a crazy, not an obscene amount of money. They're now up to 256 for PSA 10 and Optic. And this hasn't changed much, but this is only going back 7 days. Only one is sold. The pop count is higher than 2 on this card. This is old data, but there's not a ton of these at the moment. So that could be influencing this a little bit, though I doubt it. The raw on this is still a little under $10, give or take. It's up a little bit. So on this LeBron base stuff, if you are, well, I got a couple things to talk about. All right. First, if you're just starting out and you don't have, you're looking to quote unquote build your bankroll, to me, this is a very good card to dip your toes into grading on. It is a very low cost point of entry. You can get them for around $10. They'll probably be more by the time you look at this, but regardless, they're a relatively cheap base card. Hell, if you ripped any optic, you may have some laying around. I know I have a ton of them laying around. Um, to kind of play with the whole let me buy raw, get some stuff graded, and see if I could drastically increase my profits. So for around 10-ish bucks a card, and you could flip it to a PSA 10 for $250, or I did not look to see what a SGC 10 is going for in this. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. It will not be in Market Movers, but I'm going to keep talking while we're doing this. This could be a really good card to, like I said, kind of build your bankroll. The other thing I'm going to say about this in general, the prisms, the optics, whatever, we're in uncharted waters. I don't know where this market's going to go. I don't understand how a 17th year base card in a PSA 10 is selling for $700. That is just crazy to me. So I would love to tell you to hold this until later in the playoffs, and in fact, that's probably the smart play. You're and anyone's investment into this card is not that much. If you bought them raw, whether it's the prism, the optic, whatever, you probably didn't spend a lot on them, plus grading fees, so you're not into these for a ton of money. I think they peak if depending on how long they go into the playoffs. That being said, if I was sitting on a pile of these, I said I kind of got into this in the last video a little bit. I wouldn't hesitate to sell at least a couple. If you have 5, say you bought them for $10 raw on this base prism, you spent $10 to $20 a card, depending on what you use for PSA subs. And you sent them off, they came back, they got 10s, whatever. Sell 2 now and lock in that's almost $1,400 on 2 PSA 10s that cost you a grand total of maybe $50 to $60, depending on your entry point on the base card and the grading fees. And just take that to the bank. Then if you want to risk that this keeps going and gets bigger, you still got a couple sitting there. Hell, if you had 2, I would consider doing the same. Sell 1 now and then hold and sell the other one later in the playoffs. I know the Lakers should win, but this is sports. Let's not forget, anything can frickin' happen. Not even necessary to LeBron. AD has been known to have lots of injury problems. If he comes down wrong on a knee and is out for the rest of the season or a couple series in the playoffs, that severely hurts the Lakers' chances of making and winning the NBA Finals. Or, heaven forbid, something happens to LeBron. He got hurt last year and missed a bunch of time, and we are in the NBA bubble with this restart. Players might not be in peak performance. We don't know what happens the deeper this goes, and they put more wear and tear on their bodies without like a proper training camp for this. So don't ever hesitate to mitigate your risk on this stuff, especially something like this, because you're in pure profit land already. You've made a butt ton of money off this if you started off with these back when they were cheap. So don't ever be afraid to just lock that in and move on to the next thing. I know you hate to sell something and then in 6 months you see that it doubled, but keep in mind when you sold it, you took that money and you did something else with it. That maybe you jumped on an opportunity that wouldn't have been there 6 months from now because that card went crazy. So it's all relative. But if I had multiples of these, I would look to sell. Now, personally, I don't have any graded prism. I have 1 base prism raw, which I'm going to hold. I only have 1. It's off-centered. It's not going to 10. It's probably a PSA 9 at best. I'm going to roll the dice and hold on to it. I didn't pay anything for it. It came out of a pack that I ripped back when prism was relatively affordable. So I'm going to let the dice roll on that one. I have a pile of his base Optic because I ripped a ton of Optic, and I have a pile of his base Mosaic. In both those cases, I'm going to let it ride as well because they're not graded. They're just raw cards. I did, on my PSA submission preview video, you saw I submitted one in. So we'll see what that comes back. Hopefully I would get that back right in the middle of the NBA Finals. And hopefully the Lakers are in it. Excuse me. I just don't. We're just such in uncharted waters on this stuff. 17-year base cards just don't do this. And I know I keep saying that, but it's to put it in perspective that anyone out there, myself included, that alludes to tell you that they think they know what's going to happen is bullshitting you, because nobody knows right now. We've literally taken Jack Sparrow's compass and we've gone right off the freaking map in regards to this market. Now, you can make some good guesses, you can look at some data, and you can make some assumptions, but no one knows how this ends. So like I said before, don't be afraid to lock in a good profit on something if you can. If you want to be risky and hold it, be risky and hold it. While I was going on that rant, I managed to look up this Optic in an SGC. Unfortunately, there are no recent sales on this. The most recent sale is all the way back on July 14th, and it went for $70. Now, that was 2 weeks ago. I expect that card to probably be 150, 175 right now, at least. But, like I said, if I was just starting out and I wanted to, give this whole grading shenanigans a try, this would be a good card, I think, personally, to dabble with it. Pick 2 or 3 up, see what happens. You can get them cheap. And this, to me, I know they're backed up to high hell, and they really pissed me off for some other reasons we'll get into in later videos. But this is the perfect SGC card. You can bulk this with somebody, and even if you don't bulk it, you can do it yourself for $10 a card. You might not get it back until the Chinese New Year, who knows. But you could pay $10 a card on your own, or a bulk rate is like 8 something, I think. $7.90. I don't remember exactly what bulk rates are, but it's sub $10 a card. And see what happens. If it comes back in an SGC 10, great. If it comes back in a 9.5, okay, you make a little bit of money on it, but probably not much. SGC 9.5s are basically treated like raw. If it comes back a 9, you're basically just selling a raw card at that point in time. You're probably better off to crack it. But if you think you could pull a 10, this would be a good SGC card. That being said, I would not hesitate, as you saw in my last video, to send this to PSA. And lock in the max value. If you send an economy order tomorrow to PSA with these in it, you might get them back by the NBA Finals. That's my hope. I got to drop that package in the mail tomorrow to get the PSA ones out, but I'm hoping that comes back by the time the NBA Finals finish and that they're in it. Now, that being said, this is LeBron. It's not like his prices are going to crater. For his prices to go down, the whole market would have to crash, and I don't see that happening during the NBA playoffs, during this NBA bubble, unless the bubble would burst. And I don't mean the sports card market bubble. I mean the physical NBA bubble in Florida, that the virus gets in there and they have to cancel the season. That could cause some major ramifications. So far, so good on that. But yeah, LeBron brace cards, man. Whoo-wee! I don't know what this world is anymore. And I didn't even look at the silvers. The silver pricing on this stuff is wild. But I didn't even pull that stuff up. So let's spin this forward. Are there any actionable items here that we could take? We kind of talked about this. I think this is your cheapy point getting in. And, $10 plus $20 to send it to PSA, plus some shipping and other shenanigans. If you think it could pull a 10, you could jump that up to $256. That is a nice return on a freaking $10 card. That being said, I will caution you. These optics are centering and surface nightmares, specifically centering. I have 10 or 12 of these, I think. I picked out 2 that I thought had a shot for a PSA 10. So be very careful when you're going on eBay and just randomly buying these off. my suggestion would be is pull up a picture of a graded PSA 10 and try to eyeball it as best as you can. These are tricky cards because of the way the top border has this double white line versus the bottom border with the single white line. And anytime you have a card that has 4 white sides like this, it just makes it tricky for grading because they look very off-centered even when they're only slightly off-centered. Just the nature of the way the card's designed. Also, you have to be very careful on optic surfaces. They like to nick and scratch, and that is hard to see on eBay photos. That's the only thing that's bad about this. Now, that being said, the reason why this is a good card for this, if you get a bad bunch, you're only out $10 per card. Worst case scenario, you set those to the side. It's LeBron. They're just going to keep going up. Maybe you could sell them for $20 by the NBA Finals if they make a run, and you're still fine. You didn't really necessarily lose money, and you may even end up making a little bit of money just flipping them raw. It's not the end of the world, and you're not into it for a ton to begin with. But let's look at other players that this applies to. So let's look, and I pulled Hollows here because it's where I had the best data. We're going to look at 3 other players that changed teams this year that have new jerseys in product. And all these guys missed Prism's initial release. So that's KD, Kawhi, and AD. So you could see here the same thing is happening with Kawhi and AD. AD's up 154%. This thing was dirt cheap for a while. I have one that I opened. I had it sitting in a box, purposely holding it for the NBA Finals or for a deep playoff run. And they were like $20 or $30 a couple months ago. This is the first time I've really checked prices on this in a while. The LeBron thing led me to it. In fact, you can even see, actually, I'm only going back 14 days on this chart. And you can see that it's already gone up $50 almost in 14 days. Kawhi's not gone up as much. This has been floating around the $70 to $85 mark for weeks. And it's just now starting to creep up with the bubble games starting. These could be pretty good gets. And this is probably, having now looked at this, is probably the best get of the bunch because he is not currently playing and the prices reflect that. He is stagnant. I did not look to see if these are still readily available for this $30 to $40. But now this comes with a caveat, and you're going to have to use your own gut feeling on this one. Do you think he can come back okay from the Achilles? And do you think the Nets can actually be good, or is Kyrie a legit head case? The combination of Kyrie being an absolute head case, and as a Cleveland sports fan, I love the dude. He had the biggest shot in my life, but the guy is maybe crazy. And then you have KD, who can also be a little cantankerous sometimes, and also is coming off an Achilles tear. However, if you like the upside of the Nets, this is probably a pretty cheap price point for this. This only goes up, and this is actually something I would keep an eye on. It may actually get cheaper or flatten as the playoffs go, or if people catch on to this, it could get starting to get gobbled up and the prices slowly creep. But it's not going to go up as fast as the guy's playing currently. At least I don't think it will. So either one of these two may not be bad investments, either for long-term holds, or my feeling would be is to buy them now and then sell them before the playoffs end. You're going to have to kind of, play it matchup by matchup there and see what happens. But the deeper these two go, the more expensive these cards are going to get. So it's just going to be a matter of when you think you need to pull the trigger. This, to me personally, and this is just me, I would not want to necessarily be holding this long term unless I just really like the player. If things go sideways, these are going to be the first types of cards that go down, not their Prism rookies. It's going to be stuff like this that takes the biggest impact because I don't think the demand's going to be there as much. But that being said, these are the current prices on these 3, and these are the 3 most notable names. Now, we're going to preface this by one other thing, and then we got one more thing to talk about. This is probably going to end up being a long video. Chronicles comes out, or it is out in hobby. It releases in retail maybe next week. Chronicles has Prism Update in it. If you are ripping Chronicles, and I don't remember exactly who is all on the update list. I know KD is, and I know Leonard is. I assume AD is as well. I did not check before this video. I forgot. Um, if you are ripping Chronicles and you come across any Prism Update card, do not throw that in your bulk random box of vets. Set that crap to the side, sleeve it up, top load it, mag it, because their first quote unquote Prism cards will be crazy. Um, Not necessarily the LeBron level, because this is not LeBron, but especially if these guys make deep runs, hang on to those. Don't lose them in your quote unquote commons box or your random vet box. Set those to the side and sleeve those bad boys up, especially if you pull a parallel, like a silver or a numbered card or whatever. Um, because that Prism Update stuff is going to be in Chronicles basketball. So, last one to talk about, and then we'll get you out of here. I wanted to look at the numbers for, and I had to do this one manually. This is for the base AD optic. This is going back to June, and you could see they were going for about $2 to $3, and now they are currently up to $9. And this is AD's base optic. Um, Once again, nothing too crazy. But if you opened Optic, I would dig around and look for these. If you could pick up some large lots on eBay still cheap. This is once again one of those cards, if you're just starting out, you don't have to spend a lot of money on. And I'm not saying you necessarily have to grade this one. Though maybe you could. I didn't even look to see if there was graded ones. The odds of this being graded are slim. But I will tell you going forward, I guarantee you people submit these to be graded. So that could be a play as well. I, with knowing their turnaround times and that you probably wouldn't get it back, if you legit think the Lakers are going to win it all, and you rolled the dice on submitting a couple of these to PSA to get graded, and you roll back in with PSA 10, first optic AD base cards right around the time they're putting a trophy and having a COVID parade down Beverly Hills or whatever, that's could be good timing on that. But once again, it kind of comes down to, do you think the Lakers are going to win it all or not? And that wouldn't necessarily be a bad card to hold for the long term, but I don't know what profit would be on that because there's no numbers to back it up yet, but that actually could be a decent risk to take. I'll have to nose around after to see if there are any Optic PSA 1080s out there, but if there are, there probably aren't many, and they might be parallels as well. So anyway, we went really long today. That's all I have for you guys. This vet base card shenanigans is off the rails right now. So if you're still with me, leave me a comment down below. Hit the like buttons, all that nonsense. And make sure you subscribe. That's probably the most important thing right now. Trying to get those subscriber numbers up. I would like to crack through 400 and then send us on the fast track to 5. And then we will see where we go from there. But that's it, guys and girls. You guys have a nice night, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.